Hey everybody. So I'm traveling this week and I am operating off my Linux laptop as well as using my Samson Meteor mic rather than my regular mic setup. And the reason I'm letting you guys know this is because this video is going to be raw and unedited because I am pretty new to the Linux video editing tools. So with that said though, I wanted to put out a video regarding my most recent video that was restricted by YouTube. Many people actually thought that this video was taken down. It was not. So the video I'm talking about is my video, "The New Zealand Shooting Smells Like a False Flag." As you can see, it says right here, some features disabled and appeal. So I've done that. I did do an appeal based on the community guidelines appeal. This video was placed in restricted mode. And as you can see where it says the reason required to submit the appeal, I actually have submitted an appeal. I was only limited to 500 characters. The appeal process is an absolute joke. In 2019, no appeal process for a video to be restricted or to be stricken should be limited to 500 characters. I mean, this is 2019, right? And YouTube has lots of, basically, they've got a lot of server backbone. So there's no reason that a real appeal shouldn't be able to be filed. They just want to use this process as a joke. And most appeals fail anyway, as everybody knows. But one of the reasons that I appealed this, as you can see from the video, this appeal doesn't violate YouTube's policies. And just as importantly, I'm located in the United States. I am not subject to New Zealand's censorship laws. More importantly, this is extremely newsworthy. This idea that nobody should be able to read what is in the manifesto is extremely disturbing. Yet, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter have been censoring the content of the manifesto all over the internet. And the reason I believe that they are doing this is because the shooter's ideology, if the manifesto is taken to be true, which I think parts of it may be, most, I should say, more closely resembles Democrats than GOP policies, at least from a United States perspective, because the shooter adopts much of what is considered the Green New Deal that's been adopted by the New Democrats, like Ocasio-Cortez and others. The shooter is outspoken in his opposition to capitalism and democracy, which are things that many of the new socialists like Ocasio-Cortez are opposed to. And this individual also idealizes China, which, interestingly enough, recent news has come out and expressed concern about basically how Google is still working for China and how Google's efforts working with the Chinese government are benefiting the Chinese military. I believe it was the Joint Chiefs of Staff recently that came out publicly and expressed these concerns. Now, the reason I find that interesting is because this is something that I actually talked about a few months ago in a prior video where I expressed concern that Google and YouTube were agents of the Chinese government. This is just one example of that, where they just choose to restrict a video that doesn't violate their policies for the express purpose of avoiding any of the ideological backlash to the hypocrisy of this left-wing terrorist. Because the reality is, that's what this individual is. He is a left-wing terrorist. He is not a right-wing terrorist at all, and I'm not even convinced that this individual is even a white nationalist, even though he states he is. Obviously, at some point, we have to take him at face value to be fair. But I think that when it comes to this sort of thing, there's a lot of concerns about this particular shooter, and there's a lot of criticism coming back on the left as a direct result of this. So I think my concern here is that we have to have all the facts on the table, and the investigation into the shooter needs to be done with transparency, and it needs to be a complete investigation. It can't be shuffled under the rug like the Las Vegas shooter investigation was, where we found out that his girlfriend, who is residing in the Philippines, or at least has property in the Philippines, also worked, I believe it was for the FBI. So there's a lot of concerns here about this particular shooter, especially with the fact that he actually had accomplices, but the accomplices were released. Now, again, there are a lot of questions here about this shooter. I'm not saying the shooting didn't happen. I know that there are a lot of people out there that are like, oh, the whole thing was a hoax. You know what? I don't weigh in on that. Obviously, it looks like people are dead. The person was absolutely arrested. But I think that this individual is not only insane and extremely misguided, but I think it's a perfect example of a left-wing terrorist. And when I brought up the idea that this terrorist was more associated with Antifa rather than, a GOP or a limited government style white nationalist, I think a lot of people were extremely frustrated by this. Now, let me kind of clarify my position as well on that. Socialism doesn't work. And a lot of these white nationalists that are out there that are trash talking my video because they're like, well, I have ideologies and beliefs like this. Listen, if you embrace socialism, whether you are a white nationalist or not, you're a booger-eating moron. Look at Sweden. Look at Venezuela. Look at all these other countries that have embraced socialism. They are dropping right into the gutter. Venezuela is the perfect example of why socialism doesn't work. Now, again, I don't care if you're a white nationalist. I don't care if you're a civic nationalist or even an American nationalist. But the idea that we should be embracing socialists and socialism, I think it's completely misguided. The idea of limited government is how our country was founded. And I say our country, I mean the United States. It wasn't founded on socialism. In fact, the more socialist policies that are enacted across the country in the United States, the worse those areas are. I mean, look at California. California is a Democratic stronghold. There is a reason I call California dog shitistan, all right? They have a typhus epidemic right now. They had a hepatitis epidemic. They have a homeless epidemic. And in San Francisco, they have a public defecation epidemic. These are third world country conditions. I've even had lots of people in my comment section say, look, I've been to third world countries. They are not as bad as urban California. And what I mean by that is, the coast. So, Los Angeles, San Francisco, those areas. Obviously, there's good parts of those cities, but there's a huge crisis in California, and it goes by the name of socialism. If you go to states that are not California, that are not the Puget Sound in Washington state, that are not in urban New York or Chicago or Detroit, and you go to what a lot of people refer to as flyover America, or you go into the South, you will see that none of those social ills exist. You go into Missouri, you go into some of these other places where they have small towns. I mean, sure, they've got their drug problems because of the cartels. Again, the cartels should be listed as a terrorist organization. I think that is a smart move forward. But this idea that socialism is the way forward, whether you're a white nationalist or not, like I said, it is extremely misguided. And for those people that are not students of history, one of the things you might want to think about is the fact that before Stalin took power, Stalin was a organized crime figure. And when I say took power, I'm talking about when he helped usher in communism into Russia. We are seeing the same thing with Democrats right now. They are embracing violations of federal law, violations of our immigration law, and they are creating sanctuary states for illegal immigrants who are criminals, okay? These are criminal foreign individuals who are not U.S. citizens. And now the Democrats in the House have turned around and they've said, yes, we want to violate Americans' constitutional right to vote and make it valueless by allowing illegals to vote. In fact, they're so frustrated by it that they want that their policies have been completely rejected by United States citizens. This is the reason that they're trying to get more immigrants in the United States to vote. And when I say immigrants, I'm talking about non-citizens. I'm not talking about the immigrants that migrate here legally. Okay? I want to make sure that that's abundantly clear. And then in addition to that, they're trying to lower the voting age to 16. Why? Because most of the communist and socialist indoctrinators are in the high schools. They are in the junior highs. They are in academia. And so they are trying to manipulate these children whose brains haven't even formed yet. Okay? They don't have a right to vote. They're not legally adults. They do not have the legal right to carry a gun yet. They don't even have the right to drink alcohol. Yet they want these people to vote on our future. This is how desperate the Democrats are. This shooter, make no mistake, this shooter was a left-wing terrorist, more closely associated with Antifa, more closely associated with Democrats like Ocasio-Cortez and the New Progressives. And the fact is that these policies and these ideologies are not compatible with the United States Constitution. They are not compatible with this country. And of course, YouTube and its parent company, Google, are promoting these policies. They are financing these socialists. They are financing these communists. They are working with communist China. I do believe that they are a foreign agent of China, which is kind of nice that finally the Joint Chief of Staff has actually come out and publicly said so. This is a deeply troubling issue. And now, of course, anytime a left-wing terrorist is featured on international media, they want to censor all information about it because they're trying to control the narrative. Organizations like YouTube, organizations like Facebook and Twitter, they do not want the truth to come out. That is the bottom line. That's why they restrict videos like mine. This is why YouTube will be relegated to irrelevance. As much as they want to work with their antitrust partners at PayPal and Stripe and MasterCard and continue to demonetize these people, the reality is that as American nationalists of conscience continue to stand up and continue to take my advice and to sue these organizations into the Stone Ages for tortious interference with a business relationship, for basically this antitrust action that they're doing, as long as they continue to do that, they are going to eventually relegate themselves into irrelevance like MySpace. That's why you see BitChute they now have more payment options, and they are creating more by the day. That's why you see Minds continuing to grow. That's why you see Gab continuing to grow. And when they destroy comment sections in restricted videos like the one that they've just restricted of mine, now you're going to see things like Dissenter.com come up, where Dissenter, which is powered by Gab, is allowing people to have free speech rights. You see, the international socialists and the national socialists, whether you're a white nationalist or not, they don't want free speech. They want a totalitarian government. Plain and simple. That is the reality. So with that said, we still need to embrace free speech. There needs to be a transparent investigation into the New Zealand shooter and into the people who supported him. And the question that isn't being asked that should be asked is this: why did this shooter go to New Zealand for his training? And who did he train with? He didn't just show up one day and went, hey, you know what? I'm going to train with somebody. He didn't do that. And one of the questions that I asked in my original video was, okay, so he woke up one day and decided to become a white nationalist. Why is there nothing in his history that would actually suggest this? White nationalists are not silent about their position. Many of these white nationalists are men of conscience who openly speak on these things and openly have these discussions. There is nothing in the shooter's social media. There is nothing in his personal life. No one who knew him had any inkling he was a white nationalist at all. What he was a left-wing shooter who idealized China. He hated democracy. He hated capitalism. And he promoted ecological agendas like the Green New Deal. So with that said, I'm a little bit frustrated by this whole thing, though I'm not surprised. Honestly, I'm surprised that the original video did not get a strike. But with that said, I just want to let everybody know that I will be uploading it to BitChute so that people can comment on it and interact with it. Also, the video has been uploaded to Gab, and it is on Dissenter, so people can find it there. And you guys can comment and continue to interact with it. If you have any feedback for me directly, send me an email at missandry.happens@gmail.com. Again, this is kind of an unedited video, so I apologize for any production quality glitches here, because I'm on my Linux box and I'm very unused to the tools that are here. So I'm kind of a newbie here. I'm learning as I go. So with that said, go ahead and provide me feedback. Again, if YouTube restricts this video as well, it will also be uploaded to BitChute also. So again, just want to make sure that there's some clarifications here. Just want to say, also, it's a tragedy that this shooting had to happen. Oh, and I do have a final point I want to make before I run away. The final point I want to make is this. One of the main reasons the shooter decided that he wanted to go on this killing spree is because of low birth rates. All right? Low birth rates are not the result of unfettered immigration policies. But I think it's interesting that the shooter decided that he was going to go ahead and take out his frustration on the immigrants rather than the government officials who were responsible for enacting these policies in the first place. And the other thing that I would like to say is this. You want to raise the birth rate? Outlaw abortion. Millions and millions of unborn children are killed every day across the world because of Planned Parenthood and abortion providers. So if you're frustrated by the massive amounts of immigration that is happening across the Western world, I understand that. I feel your pain. And I'm not saying that everybody should embrace these policies, because the point is, if immigrants are going to come into the Western world, whether it be the United States or the United Kingdom or Europe or Australia, they need to assimilate into those cultures. They need to assimilate into those societies. Any immigrant who is unwilling to assimilate into the new country should not be allowed in, period. If they cannot assimilate and accept democracy, if they cannot assimilate and accept capitalism, if they cannot assimilate and accept freedom of speech or our Second Amendment right to bear arms, then they need to go play hide and go fuck themselves and go back to their own goddamn country. Okay? You came from a shithole for a reason. Okay? You did. You came from, for the immigrants that are out there, you came to the United States and to the Western world from your third world shitholes for a reason. And it wasn't to turn our countries into third world shitholes. But on the same token, if people actually want to increase birth rates, immigration and going after the immigrants is not the answer. The answer is handle abortion. Because I can tell you right now, there are a lot of people out there that want children, and they impregnate their significant other, and then she goes and she kills the unborn kid. This is perfectly legal. So if you want to address the birth rates, address the actual birth rates. But I thought it was interesting, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I thought it was interesting that no one in the white nationalist movement or anybody who had any like white nationalist tendencies, no one had the courage to address this issue in my comment section. Sure, I got criticized for a few other things. A lot of people didn't like the fact that I ripped into the manifesto because apparently parts of it came right from 4chan. I knew it did. But again, there were a lot of inconsistencies there that caused me to call it into question. But that said, no one from the white nationalist movement addressed the birth rate as it relates to abortion. It's like they didn't even have the courage to. And they were all trying to support socialism, like they were upset that I was anti-socialist. Well, like again, socialism doesn't work. We've demonstrated this. And the reality is that ethno-states don't work. Look at China. China has too many boys and not enough girls. And then in addition to that, you look at Japan, and Japan is going extinct. The Japanese people, they're having a huge demographic nightmare because the birth rate is so low. And they have next to no immigration. So the point is that if you want to handle the birth rates, then you have to address abortion. You have to address the family. If you cannot promote the family, a traditional family with a biological mother and a biological father, and the biological children living in that home. And I'm not talking about a broken home. I'm not talking about single mom mania. I'm not talking about single mom monkey branching and getting a new stepdad because she decides she wants to trade up because she went to the gym one day. That's not what I'm talking about. Or at least not by itself. I'm talking about biological mom, biological dad living in the home, raising their biological children with actual family values. Until you address those things, your white nationalist movement isn't going to do anything. And the reality is that if we as a society, even those that are American nationalists and civic nationalists and those people that are just nationalists in general who care about their culture, until everybody's willing to address these issues, everybody's birth rate is going to continue to fall. So with that said, again, I just want to say the video wasn't taken down. I did not get a strike on my channel, #yet. But the video was put in restricted mode. I did appeal. I did the little 500 character thing. I don't think I'm going to win because the video was restricted on ideological basis, and they were using New Zealand's standard rather than the United States standard, which, by the way, is completely flawed. Okay? If I live in the United States, you should hold me to a United States standard. And the reality is that in the United States, we embrace free speech. And we should be allowed to have that without having gatekeepers like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter unnecessarily and interfering with our speech. So with that said, this is kind of a quick blurb, unedited video, and I will be uploading it in a little bit. With that, check out my channel on BitChute. There is a link to it on the homepage of my YouTube channel, and I will talk to you later. Take care.